On the frigid morning of December 16, 1944, at 0630 hours in Monschau, Germany, Headman Klaus Richa of the 12th SS Panzer Division hunched over a frost-covered notebook, pencil scratching furiously as he recorded a scene of devastation unlike anything seen before in the annals of modern warfare. Across the mist-laden fields near Henn, an entire German battalion had been annihilated in minutes, not by direct artillery hits, nor by conventional timed shells requiring precise calculations, but by an almost supernatural force, shells that detonated automatically 30 feet above the ground, raining lethal fragments over trenches, foxholes, and makeshift cover, transforming soldiers' defenses into death traps. In just 3 minutes, 702 men lay dead, and the few survivors returned in shock, murmuring a chilling refrain, "Die Luft tot, death comes from the air itself." What Richa did not know was that he had just witnessed the combat debut of America's most closely guarded secret of ground warfare, the proximity fuse, a revolutionary device housing a miniature radar system capable of intelligent detonation, the first true, smart weapon, whose impact would eclipse almost every other military innovation of the war, save for the atomic bomb. Mathematically, the fuse's effect was staggering. Where conventional anti-aircraft shells required over 500 rounds to bring down a single aircraft, proximity-fused shells succeeded with only 155. Where traditional artillery killed soldiers hiding in trenches 5% of the time, proximity fuses inflicted 70% casualties, and where London's survival against the onslaught of V-1 flying bombs seemed improbable, proximity-fused defenses destroyed nearly 79% of incoming missiles within weeks, preserving lives and infrastructure alike. The journey of this extraordinary invention began not in American laboratories, but in the shadow of Britain's darkest hour. On October 30, 1939, in Exat, England, a young scientist named W. But, working with colleagues Edward S.H. and Amherst Thompson at the Air Defense Establishment, proposed an idea that seemed like pure science fiction, an artillery shell that could think. He reasoned that the First World War's failure rates for anti-aircraft artillery, averaging 8,500 shells per plane destroyed, would only worsen with faster, higher-flying aircraft, and that Britain's very survival depended on a radical solution. His concept relied on using radio waves to detect approaching aircraft and trigger automatic detonation at the optimal altitude, a feat that required electronics capable of surviving forces exceeding 20,000 times gravity, spins of 30,000 revolutions per minute, and extreme temperature ranges from -50 to +100 degrees Fahrenheit. Initial tests with unrotated projectiles proved the idea feasible, but the limitations of British industry made mass production impossible. In September 1940, the desperate solution arrived via the historic Tizard Mission. Britain's top scientific secrets, including the proximity fuse, were delivered to the United States aboard the Canadian Pacific liner Duchess of Richmond. Arriving in Washington, the delegation briefed American officials, culminating in a pivotal meeting on September 19 when Dr. John Cockcroft introduced the concept to 39-year-old American physicist Merle A. Tveet, recently appointed to lead Section T of the National Defense Research Committee. Tveet, a rural South Dakota native who had grown up tinkering with radios alongside future Nobel laureate Ernest Lawrence, had recently been galvanized by reports of the London Blitz to find a technological solution to save lives. With the British concept now in hand, Tveet faced the colossal challenge of converting theory into a working, mass-producible weapon capable of enduring the extreme conditions of artillery fire. By December 1940, a mansion at 5241 Broad Branch Road, Washington, had become the nerve center of the project, where Tveet assembled a team of elite scientists: Richard B. Roberts, Henry H. Porter, Robert B. Broad, Lawrence Halfdad, Lloyd Berkner, and James Van Allen, among others. Van Allen's task was to develop vacuum tubes capable of withstanding extreme G-forces, a problem he solved by borrowing techniques from hearing aid manufacture and inventing the ingenious mousetrap spring system, protecting filaments during launch and releasing them in flight. Berkner developed a circuit configuration allowing greater detection distances and reliability, and the National Carbon Company created a revolutionary reserve battery system, shattering ampoules that activated mid-flight to power the system. The fuse incorporated a complete radar system in a mere 5-inch shell, including transmitter, receiver, amplifier, detonator, and safety mechanisms, operating on frequencies previously thought cutting-edge, achieving the impossible through elegant autodyne design. By March 1942, the Applied Physics Laboratory at Johns Hopkins University became the hub for development, a converted Chevrolet dealership housing the most advanced electronics lab in the world, with a culture that prioritized speed, precision, and moral responsibility above all. Combat testing began at sea and in the Pacific. On January 5, 1943, USS Helena's radar detected 4 incoming Japanese dive bombers. With proximity-fused shells loaded and ready, the first salvo passed close to its target, and then, in a moment witnessed by stunned gunners, one shell detonated midair, sending a perfect sphere of lethal fragments across the aircraft, shearing wings and igniting engines. Over the coming months, proximity-fused shells transformed naval warfare, giving the U.S. Navy near-miraculous anti-aircraft capability. Test results from USS Cleveland's trials with drone aircraft had already convinced the Navy to commit fully to mass production. By 1943, the first thousands of shells were distributed across the Pacific Fleet. Crews marveled at the new weapon, realizing that the shells themselves were thinking, dramatically increasing kill rates while reducing the need for near-impossible marksmanship. The psychological impact was profound, with sailors feeling empowered, almost invincible, as the enemy's aircraft fell from the sky in unprecedented numbers. In Europe, the impact was equally transformative. During the defense of London against V-1 flying bombs, proximity-fused shells coupled with radar-directed gun systems raised interception success rates from 24% to nearly 80% within weeks. In Antwerp, the shells safeguarded vital supply lines, neutralizing nearly all incoming missiles and allowing Allied armies to advance unimpeded into Germany. During the Battle of the Bulge, the first use of proximity-fused shells in ground combat obliterated German infantry advancing across open fields, delivering thousands of casualties in minutes, shattering morale, and rendering traditional tactics obsolete. General Patton, witnessing the results firsthand, recognized that armies would need entirely new strategies once such weapons became universal. The industrial mobilization behind the fuse was equally extraordinary. Converted bakeries, automobile garages, and Christmas light factories produced the world's first mass-produced smart weapon, employing tens of thousands of workers across more than 100 factories, assembling over 22 million units by war's end. Precision components, miniature vacuum tubes, and batteries had to be flawless. Each failure could prove fatal to American soldiers. Secrecy rivaled the Manhattan Project, with workers unaware of the true nature of their labor, employees addressed as "Doctor" regardless of rank, and even captured fuses examined by German scientists dismissed as impossible. Germany and Japan attempted similar technologies but failed due to industrial limitations, fragmented research, and lack of mass production capability, leaving the Allies with an unassailable technological advantage. The human dimension of the fuse's story is no less compelling. Scientists like Van Allen and Tavit saw their work save lives directly in combat. Sailors like Lieutenant Cochrane witnessed the transformation firsthand, and assembly workers like Betty Thompson discovered decades later the miraculous weapon they had helped construct. The proximity fuse reshaped the Pacific War, making kamikaze attacks survivable, decimating Japanese carrier aviation, and saving thousands of lives. In Europe, it turned the tide during the Ardennes Offensive, protected vital cities and supply hubs, and rendered centuries of military doctrine obsolete. Leaders from Eisenhower to Churchill recognized its decisive impact, estimating that without proximity-fused munitions, Allied casualties, lost ships, and civilian deaths would have been exponentially higher. Post-war, Even German military leaders acknowledged that their traditional defenses had been rendered irrelevant overnight by the fuse, a testament to the transformative power of American innovation, industrial capacity, and the genius of science applied to survival. In every theater, from the frost-covered fields of Germany to the storm-tossed waters of the Pacific and the skies above London, the proximity fuse redefined warfare, proving that a single technological breakthrough, when combined with vision, ingenuity, and industrial might, could save lives, destroy the enemy, and change the course of history.